Okay. There we go. Okay, and I am going to admit everyone and start the live transcript. And then I just requested, the transcript. Okay.
Thank you. Perfect.
Okay.
Okay, are we ready to go?
I believe we are ready to go, Gloria.
All right, thank you. Welcome, everyone. Whether you're from UIC or UIS, we're glad that you're here today. We're at our November AFO BMG meeting. I can't believe it. Thanksgiving is just around the corner. A couple of reminders to start us off. First of all, we are recording the session today so that people who are unable to attend can watch it, just so you're aware of that. Also, and Bernadette, can you display the slides? Thank you so much. A couple of reminders. You're going to be placed on mute so that we don't have unintended audio. That said, we certainly welcome your questions. So if you have one, please type it in the chat box. Lots of people are watching that, and we'll be addressing those questions when the time is right in presentations or after. If you have a question after the meeting ends, there's a link to the meeting video, and it's going to be available. Of course, you can also reach out to any of us at any time on issues that arise that need our attention. Let's move on to the agenda. It's pretty full today, so it's included in the slides. I'm not going to read it to you, just for your future reference. So let's move on to a few announcements. First, I'd like to talk a little bit about the next phase of the internal controls project. It's kicking off now, and a major focus of this phase is really going to work on an easier and more clear way to request the exceptions that some of you have been working with us on. Additionally, the team is going to be looking at long-term recommendations that will hopefully mitigate the need for those exceptions. Some of those recommendations really include assessing the receiving process. What is that going to look like under Contracts Plus and the improved iBuy process moving forward? Some policy updates that will provide clarification. Really defining departmental oversight processes that serve as mitigations when there are conflicting roles. And then also enhancing some system business rules to avoid the opportunity for fraud. So it's not something we have to concern ourselves with. The systems will handle some of it anyway. I also wanted to add that the sponsors are structuring the next phase of the project to include advisory groups from each university right from the beginning of the effort. So I'm sure some of you will be contacted to see if you're interested in serving on those advisory groups. Next, we've had quite a few conversations about the right time to hold the next BAT conference. It's been a while. We learned that really one of the key benefits of the conference is the ability to get everyone together so that you can share ideas and ask and answer questions both inside and outside of the sessions. As a result of that, we're really going to not schedule a conference this spring because we felt that it would still have to be remote. So it is our truly sincere hope that we can plan an in-person conference for the fall of 2022. Stay tuned for more on that. And then finally, some Office of Business Services updates. Since this is my last meeting with you before my retirement on the 30th of November, the organization is changing a little bit. And today I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome Bill Patterson and Ginger Velasquez to the meeting in their new roles. Bill has enjoyed a long career in higher education with over 25 years in student financial services. You know, I'm going to embarrass him now. I remember him when he was an upstart student worker there. He began his career in a technology role for the University of Illinois at Chicago in their receivables office before joining the Banner implementation. And then finally, he leads the Consolidated University Bursar office, and he has done that since 2005. In his role as Senior Director of University Bursar, Bill manages student accounts receivable and general accounts receivable services, supporting the research, teaching, public service, and economic development missions of the University of Illinois system. He's been named Assistant Vice President for Business Services, of course, always pending board approval. I look forward to transitioning my role to Bill because I have complete confidence that he shares my desire to serve the university community on behalf of the system offices through outreach, education, and process and system improvement initiatives. So you won't even notice I'm gone. I also want to welcome Ginger Velasquez to the meeting today. Ginger has been a key member of my team since I assumed the role of AVP for Business Services and will continue to support Bill as he takes on this new role. Ginger has been at the university for 24 years. She started her career in what is now called the Bursar office at UIUC. And after 6 years there, she left the Bursar office to join the office of the Assistant Vice President for Business and Finance at UIUC. In her current role, Ginger is the executive director and is responsible for the university's external audit engagement, the University Contract Records Office, and the new Office of University Outreach. More on that later. This Office of University Outreach, as I have been working with our new CFO, Paul Ellinger, on the transition, I'm really delighted to announce that his commitment to serving the universities in this outreach capacity is strong. I'm really convinced again that going forward, Bill and Ginger will provide the extraordinary service and support that you all deserve so that we can not only succeed, but excel as we work together to achieve the mission of the university. Now onto the body of our meeting. It's always a pleasure to welcome Shauna Claiborne, the Supplier Diversity Coordinator. Oh, I beg your pardon.
Give me some music, Gloria. Hey.
I'm making music, that's right, a big announcement. And a spam call. So Shauna is with us and she gives us opportunities to learn about supplies and services offered by qualified BEP program vendors. I'm going to ask Shauna to introduce today's presenter from KFA Incorporated.
Thank you, Gloria. I want to be quick because I know we have a tight schedule. So I do want to introduce Mr. Greg Bush from KFA appropriately. So founded in 1993 in Chicago, KFA Inc. is an information technology consulting and services firm serving clients in the public and private sectors, including education, transportation, infrastructure, healthcare, and facilities management. KFA's clients manage more than $80 billion in awarded business over cloud solutions implemented by KFA, and their portfolio of successful projects has won 21 awards over the last 20 years, including the 2020 award from the U.S. Department of Commerce for Minority Innovative Technology Firm of the Year. KFA also specializes in API development, custom integrations, and state-of-the-art computer-based training via KFA's Virtual Mentor Trademark Solutions, which is KFA's which we will learn more about. KFA's professional services approach, the KF Way, has been recognized as a best practice and has led to wide adoption of KFA solutions with measurable returns on investment. In fact, this weekend, KFA's Greg Bush Jr. and Quintella Inti are headed to Silicon Valley to execute a contract for phase, which will be presented today. And real quick, I think you'll mention it, Greg, but they are also proud awardee of the IPEC 2140 New IT Consulting Award. So I would go ahead and turn it over to you now, Greg Bush. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Shauna. And I would like to acknowledge my Director of Strategic Sourcing and Sustainability, Quintella Inti, who is also observing, and she's going to beat me up if I say anything wrong. So let me get started. And I like to try to be funny, but often I'm not, so excuse me. Okay, so I am Greg Bush. We've been in business now for almost 30 years. And during this time, we specialize and we perform in those award-winning professional services. Our niche is delivering technologies that empower teams on small and large projects to collaborate over the internet. Now, the key and ultimate benefit is project governance and controls. In delivering our work, we specialize in cybersecurity, cloud development. We host what we create and develop, and we have very specific training solutions that we created. We're going to talk about that today. Yes, we're award-winning. We are indeed very proud of that 2020 Minority Innovative Technology Firm of the Year acknowledgement that we got from the U.S. Department of Commerce. 80 billion managed for all of our client projects across the United States and a few in Canada, using information technology solutions that we either created from scratch, we innovated, or we implemented another platform owned by another vendor, okay? But we understand and realize that universities and corporations and public-private projects have a business problem that we have indeed resolved. Because and congratulations on your retirement. What we realize, Miss Keeley, congratulations. What we realize, and you're lucky in your case that you have Bill and Ginger that have been at the university and they worked on your team, they understand what you do. But the business problem that we're dealing with is millennials and new college graduates aren't prepared to come into your environment and just take over the job. Okay, or deliver technology solutions because big universities have big IT, and I've seen even chroma key screens that these millennials and new college graduates just aren't accustomed to. They want to buy a smartphone application, pay $2, and it just works. Well, we've resolved that with our solution that I call Phase. Okay, Phase is a web collaboration information system. That's what I've dubbed it. Okay. Now, Phase eliminates the need for disparate solutions, meaning we know within departments at businesses and universities, everyone has their own special spreadsheets with macros and arrays and formulas and very cool reports. And then you have SharePoint over here and Teams over there and Zoom, and you have Access databases, you have your ERP and homegrown systems, all these disconnected systems. And then hopefully IT or the consultant came in and met the scope to make them all work together. Our goal is to eliminate any disparate solution that you created and get everyone working in one platform. And we've definitely achieved that by getting all of those scenarios that I just mentioned in Phase. The benefits of Phase are what I call the 5 A's: access, the project record in one central repository; automation, because we're going to digitize and automate your legacy systems, the legacy paper, and any process that's not in that big ERP now, we can put it all in Phase, digitize it. Once we do that, we're going to assign accountability to individuals in the digital workflow because they're going to get a due date, due time. The minute we do that, we create transparency. Who has ball and court responsibility to get their work done in the timely manner? Every action we take in Phase has an audit trail. Who did what, when, what company? Now, Phase is not just an internal system. It's for your vendors, your suppliers, and your tiered suppliers and vendors, all securely accessing Phase from a role-based, secure point of view, so they can only see the data they're privy to and take action that they're privy to. Now that we got your entire organization, internal, external, and even departmentalized projects in the system, we can now run reports, dashboards, so we have our analytics. Those 5 A's, phonetically, 5 is PH and the A's, but the P is backwards because we're creating disruption. 250% more productivity achieved in up to 50% less time at a fraction of the cost of big IT. Now I have a quick video. I'm going to show you what I'm talking about. Let me know if you can't hear it.
Phase workflows have been designed based on over 30 years of implementing collaborative technologies for a variety of industries. Due to our wealth of knowledge implementing best practices in workflow design, Phase works with no configuration required. Your project teams and correspondents can engage in tasks and deliverables immediately, thus empowering you to realize your return on investment quickly. Manage all organization types, including facilities management and architecture, engineering and construction projects with role-based team member access. Simply check the boxes giving users in each role the privilege to review phase dashboards. Phase dashboards provide insight and oversight into the status of work in progress. User-specific settings allow your administrator to configure security privileges for every individual participant in your phase account. These settings can be configured manually, as demonstrated here, or via a CSV file import. Use the column selector to turn on or off the phase features to be configured. You may also wish to save your view as your new default setting. Use phase data visualizations to identify who has fallen in court responsibility to complete tasks. Question aged workflows and other high priority concerns and make informed decisions based on the data presented. Open the business concern for review and action by clicking on the data in the charts. Phase eliminates the need for team members to keep their own logs. In addition to the phase reports that are available in PDF and Excel formats, you can create your own reports by filtering the phase logs and exporting the data to Microsoft Excel. All phase logs can be sorted, filtered and printed as well. Eliminate claims, disputes, and litigation with the phase audit trail, which is captured for every workflow action. Simply open the workflow to review the audit trail. The audit trail is maintained for the history of the phase account. View clicks performed by team members, including workflow actions, document attachment actions, and data changes, which are all captured in the phase audit trail functionality.
So what we've done is taken out 30 years of implementing technology, collaborating on the internet. I spent the last 2 years of my life creating that from scratch, to the point where it won us the award in 2020, to the point where I'm headed to Silicon Valley to sign up companies flying in from Africa with administer technology from the Ivory Coast. What we're doing here is taking what we know are $1 million per year implementations. So that's KFA's bread and butter. We love these big projects. We love to implement those big systems, but I want to help U of I turn that $1 million spend. How about 100,000 a year or even less? It's a negotiation, it's a discussion based on your needs. No big 5 IT firm is needed to make what I just showed you work, because that works out of the cloud. No configuration ever needed. We're here to support you. Your return on investment, if you spend 50,000, that's a 437% ROI based on 250% more productivity and 50% less time. Phase is not Slack, Excel, Outlook, but we took the best practices of these systems and I put it all in one platform. Even an Adobe Acrobat editor in Phase, and you don't even need Acrobat. This will run on any device, cell phone, smart tablet, or computer, Apple or Windows. Screen captures. Now, I would like to quickly talk about Virtual Mentor. And Shauna and team, if I'm going over on time, please let me know. KFA, again, everything we do in technology, we have to train our clients, train all of their stakeholders. We took the best practices of our delivery, and what we do is come in with a Hollywood-style production, capture the retiring employee, all of the wealth of knowledge developed over the 30-year career, capture it on video, put in place quizzes, gamification on those quizzes, infographics, and everything that the new employee coming in needs to know to do that job. That's the award, that's the IPEC award. We're already vetted to deliver $3 million and services to every university and junior college in Illinois. If there's time, there's another 2-minute video showing you what that is, but I think I just explained it all. I'd rather take the time to answer your questions rather than take up more of your meeting time. Again, I really appreciate the opportunity to talk today. Maybe you can hear in my voice, I'm very passionate about what we do and very excited to be going to Silicon Valley to deliver phase, which is just amazing from a kid from the South Side of Chicago. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. Do we have questions, Dana?
Excuse me, Gloria. This is Quintella from KFA. I want to add one thing. We're presenting in front of Harvard December for a Data West conference, and at the ICCC, a Harvard founded business conference phase. They wrote a case study, a Harvard Business Review case study about us. And so, and what we're doing in the African diaspora, but also here domestically. I just wanted to share that.
Yeah. Thank you, Quinn, which is another amazing opportunity. We never, Quinn is great with what she does, but I never thought Harvard University would call on Quinn to say they want to write a case study on our work in creating phase. So there's so much more. I would love to set up, one-on-one meetings to anyone else that has questions that are too much to discuss right now. But just one more quick point I want to make. Phase is projectized. All of your groups, all of your teams across universities can create projects inside of one phase account. Every project in phase can have its own team with security just for that one project phase. So if it be departmentalized across departments, it could be facility management, IT, it could be the bazaar's office or the registrar's office. Whatever your projects are, and I use the word project, or whatever your initiatives are, your tasks, milestones, and goals that you need to achieve and deliver, whether they just be internal or external with suppliers and vendors, phase was built to manage it without one of those big 5 IT firms coming in to do what a system that does nothing, configure it, make it work for you. I took care of all of that when I created phase.
Well, thank you again. I think, there are some pretty exciting times coming, and you are clearly on the leading edge of some of that in the technology world. It makes me a little sad that I'm retiring, because I can think of 4 or 5 uses for this right now, but we really appreciate that you're joining us today, and I'm sure there will be folks reaching out to you.
Thank you very much for having me. Shauna knows how to reach me, telephone, email, website, she has all the info. Before I hang up, I'll put it in the chat. And again, have a great day and enjoy your Thanksgiving and your holidays. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. Jason Bain now, the Senior Coordinator in UAFR, joins us today to give us timely information about this year's FISHA process.
Good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Jason Bain. I work with University Accounting and Financial Reporting. And again, just a quick overview of what the Fiscal Control and Internal Auditing Act and what it means to us. So again, what is FISHA? Again, this is a state mandated requiring each state agency to establish and maintain an effective system of internal controls. So it also requires each of these agencies on an annual basis to certify compliance with this act and report any of those material weaknesses to the Office of the Auditor General. Internal controls are, in fact, a process in which all system employees participate. And those internal controls are intended to prevent errors, irregularities, identify those problems, and ensure corrective actions are taken. They're designed to provide reasonable assurance that management data used to make decisions and the reporting that we have is reliable, accurate, and timely. Compliance with applicable laws and regulations is at an acceptable level. Again, these internal controls are to, again, provide reasonable assurance that the assets are accounted for and they are safeguarded against loss. They also want to make sure that, again, our operations are effective and efficient in everything that we do. So what is FISHA? How do we handle that reporting process, that self-reporting that we are required to do every year? So at the University of Illinois, and that through the system, right, every department provides their financial or reviews those 34 questions that are out there. They submit the responses indicating yes, no, partially comply, or no, those particular questions don't, are not impacting our unit. So they compile that information. Many times that information is coordinated with the business manager or the financial officer in your department. And then that must be reviewed and approved by the department head, the individual that is responsible for all that financial activity that occurs. From there, so that's what happens at the department level. From a timeline perspective, from November through the middle of February, then department activity is happening. You're compiling all of that information, reviewing your internal controls, identifying those processes, and confirming, yes, we did submit our biennial inventory, or yes, we have a way to communicate, gift fund restrictions, or who has access to be able to make purchases or update FabWeb or equipment records. So you're doing all of that through that, again, that November through February timeframe. That information from the department is then passed up to your college. College then is compiling all the departments and then submitting that out to the university, right? So UIC will develop a letter. UIS will develop a letter, right? Compiling all that information as one representative letter so that that can be reviewed as a system-wide. From there, we will move to what happens after, right? After the colleges are done with that, after the universities have submitted their letters, then our CFO, Paul Ellinger, and Brett Rasmus, our controller, and Julie Zamitis, our executive director of university audits, are reviewing that information. They're reviewing those responses and assessing and identifying any internal control weaknesses. Then in April, this group will craft a letter. They will present that letter and work with President Colleen to, again, explain the situations, identify those weaknesses, any of those steps that we may be in the process of correcting, or those actions that we are taking, like those incompatible roles that we've been dealing with and all those internal control activities that many of you are familiar with. So then President Colleen will usually signs off on that, or must sign off on that, so that, again, we can get that letter mailed off to the Illinois Office of the Auditor General by that May 1st deadline. Those are the requirements that we have to meet because the state dictates that we have that done. Our next slide is just a screen print of our website. I'm going to quickly jump into chat and drop in a link to that page. So again, from our website, you can log into the application for those of you that are involved in that process. You can find links to training materials and the certification information. So if you were to click on the FISHA certification explanation and resources, that will take you to an actual list of all of the different questions. So on the next slide, we have all of the questions that are, again, all 34 of those statements, those 34 of those questions. If you'd like to investigate them a little bit further, again, click on one of those numbers, maybe number 5, and that will bring you a little bit more detail, right? So you can see on the next slide the example of what that might look like, right? You may have, it may point to the property control policies and procedures, right? Where you can find additional information. On the next slide, we'll return back to our website. And if you click on the Financial Fiscal Control and Internal Auditing Act training information, you will see underneath our helpful links the next slide has all of our different training materials. So if you have a role in FSHA and you want to learn more about it or understand what all the different roles are, or if you have that that role as a submitter and approver and you're just not sure how the application works, you can use that online training there to walk you through that process. In a moment, you're going to see our links to our webinar if you want to register for that information. So on the next slide, we have 2 webinars coming up on November 16th. But first, we're going to do November 9th. And again, there's the hyperlink there in that slide so that you can register for that. Again, if you don't have a specific role in the application, that's not a problem. Maybe you just want to hear more about the FSHA process, internal controls, right? Terry Travis from University Audits is one of the main speakers in that webinar and always gives us great information on how we might better examine our internal controls and our activities within our different departments. And finally, again, as a reminder, tips for your role in FSHA, right, in this process, right? It is a valuable tool to us. It does take time. So dedicate the time. It's not just to fill out the form and, blindly click yes, 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 yes to all of these. So again, make sure you dedicate enough time to completing that FSHA questionnaire so that you can critically review the internal controls currently in place, right now, right? What are you doing today to help make sure that, assets aren't removed from the university property without permission, right? Those movable equipment items that we have control tags on. How do we make sure those aren't being removed? How do we know that, again, the people are assigned the right access, right? Based on their responsibilities. Can they process JVs? Do they have access to the P card, T card, those kinds of things? How are we monitoring that? Again, this isn't about catching people in the act. This is, again, university audits. This internal audit is all to protect us against those fraud instances, against those, sometimes it's just mistakes, right? Or humans. Right? So how do these internal controls help us prevent those mistakes? So again, that thorough review and be candid in those responses. Yeah, you know what? We aren't getting things done timely. So we didn't get our buy-in inventory submitted on time or didn't get approved on time. Okay. So again, be candid in those, because again, it's just another opportunity for us to help ourselves be more diligent about the activities that we take part in and the resources that we have available for us to use. Again, as a reminder, those benefits of using FSHA or of FSHA, again, help ensure our efficient and effective use of our unit resources. On to the next slide, please. So again, this is an annual certification, that ongoing internal audits that are being performed, and you help the university improve our efficient and effective use of departmental resources while protecting them against misuse. It also helps us demonstrate to our grantors, right, our donors and the taxpayers of the state of Illinois, that we are diligent about the funds that we are entrusted to use, right? And it does, in fact, strengthen our external relationships in that way. If you have any questions, again, each of your contacts for each of your universities are listed there on this slide, where you can see Dana Libro's name, Tracy's name, as well as if you're working with, Dana's got double duty there, Chicago and Springfield. So if you have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to them, or on the next slide, you'll see my contact information, as well as Mike Godsell, who is a great resource as far as the audit and reporting component of the Fiscal Control and Internal Auditing Act. Okay. With that, I have no additional information to share, but willing to take questions, or again, use the contact information and reach out and let us know. Okay, thank you for the time.
Thanks, Jason. I would certainly echo what Jason said about the fact that this is an exercise that's to benefit all of us. And if Dana or anyone in my office can help as you prepare and do the review, or as you want to have conversations about process improvements that you might want to identify in your unit, please don't hesitate to reach out to us as well. Okay, next up, we get UIC purchasing and contract management updates from Deborah Matlock, who's the Executive Director of UIC Purchasing and Contract Management Office.
All right, I'm unmuting. And I also I'm Deborah Matlock for anyone who doesn't know me, or to reintroduce myself. And also Aaron Rosenthal, the Senior Assistant Director, is also, I'm sorry, is also attending virtually so that he can assist with any questions. Let's go to the slideshow. Why would it let me go to the slideshow? Oh, okay, whatever. Oh no, oh no. Don't stop doing this. Am I sharing my screen, Dana? I can't tell.
Hi, Deborah, you are sharing. Why don't you click on the top left from beginning, and I think then you'd be in slideshow format. So all the way to the left. Yep, click that.
Okay. All right, thank you.
There you go.
Okay, so we want to provide an update to you today about what's been happening in UIC purchasing and contract management. And the most important thing that's been happening in the continuum of source to pay is Contracts Plus went live on November 1st, this past Monday, for those units that were previously notified and had in fact been utilizing and live at UIC in ICS. So what is Contracts Plus? It's University of Illinois' new contract drafting and management system, which replaces the Illinois contract system, commonly known as ICS, and permits contract approval routings inside of the system. It in fact also replaces the CARF with a contract request form that is in the system. This new system will serve as our single contract repository for all U of I contracts, and it is another module within the iBuy e-procurement application. So that in fact affords you the same entry point for users who are currently in iBuy. The status of deployment of this new system is on Monday, it went live for those select users which were previously live in ICS. So if you were contacted that you're part of this initial phase, please initiate contracts in the new system and not with CARFs. If you are in fact not part of the initial phase at ICS, early in 2022, we will go live with remaining users. That date currently is TBD, but you will be notified. And up to that date, please continue to initiate here at UIC any contract request with a CARF that is attached as an internal attachment to an iBuy requisition. For more information, we have the Contracts Plus website link here, and then you can always contact UIC Purchasing and Contract Management with questions and concerns. The other thing that I want to talk about is that there were two laws that were signed into effect this year. SB 1608 that was signed March 23rd, and then a trailer bill, SB 166, that was signed June 25th. Those two bills, those two public acts have made some changes to the procurement code as well as changes to the Business Enterprise Program Act. And one of the changes in that act was the creation of a new entity, a new state entity called the Commission on Equity and Inclusion. There were some additional changes, which I'm not going to go into, but I do want to give you the high points of the effect of those two bills on procurement activities here at the university. Within the Illinois Procurement Code, there is a section, a new section 5-7, which in fact identifies the Commission on Equity and Inclusion as a new oversight entity. So in addition to the Chief Procurement Officer for Higher Education and the Procurement Policy Board, there is now a Commission on Equity and Inclusion with which the UIC, as well as the other university purchasing offices, must interact to secure approvals of procurements. So the Commission on Equity and Inclusion, which I'll refer to as the commission going forward, is now going to operate alongside, albeit independent of, the Procurement Policy Board. It has very similar functions, including the authority and responsibility to review, comment upon, recommend rules and practices governing all procurements for the purpose of diversity, equity, and inclusion. They will have the right to review proposals, bids, contracts, and to recommend to the Chief Procurement Officer to void a contract or to reject a proposal or bid. The timeframes for their review are in fact defined by law. They can also, like the Procurement Policy Board, and anyone who remembers when we were launching the EPIC EHR project, we had 4 hearings in front of the Procurement Policy Board to justify our procurement activities and award. But anyway, the commission will be able to review, study, and hold public hearings concerning the implementation of the code regarding equity and inclusion in procurements. And the chief procurement officers are directed to cooperate with, provide information, and be responsive to the commission within specific dates. Some other important changes to the procurement code is that for competitive sealed proposals, the evaluation factors have been changed. So now proposals will be submitted in 3 parts. The evaluation and ranking will be independent of the other parts. The first part is price. This is a little bit disconcerting for purchasing professionals because in a competitive sealed proposal, you are in fact first by rule evaluating the technical capabilities and competencies of a provider before you ever get to price. And so this reversal of that evaluation sequence will be interesting in ranking price before whether or not vendors are competent to deliver on the products or services solicited. The second part will be the vendor's commitment to diversity. This is laid out in great detail that I'm not going to go into here, but there are rules forthcoming from the Chief Procurement Officer for Higher Education to direct how we will in fact apply the code requirements for evaluating that commitment. And then the third is all other items. There is a defined evaluation point value. 20% of all points assigned to the third part are to be given to the commitment to diversity. And then awards and contracts are only exempt from this commitment to diversity scoring if it would result in loss of federal aid funds, grants, or loans. Another big change is to emergency purchases. For all of you who have worked with purchasing, then you should be aware for emergency procurements that I, as the executive director, sign all emergency purchases, which are good for a term of 90 days. If the emergency continues beyond that 90-day period, then an extension is required, which must be filed with the Chief Procurement Officer. Notice must be given to the public at least 14 days prior to that. And then there is a hearing that's held to determine whether or not the extension should be granted. Now, emergency procurements shall be made with as much competition as is practicable to include BEP certified vendors. Notice of all emergency purchases must be given to both the Procurement Policy Board and the Commission and published to the bulletin within 5 calendar days. This has not changed. It's just that the notice must also include the Commission. And then we must file a statement within 10 calendar days of that emergency with the PPB, the Commission, and the Auditor General. And then notice of an intent to extend an emergency must be given to now both the PPB and the Commission at least 14 days prior to having a public hearing on that extension. Extensions are solely at the discretion of the Chief Procurement Officer. However, the requirement to provide notice now to the Commission does lead us to believe that the Commission will be weighing in and giving an opinion to the Chief Procurement Officer as to the benefit and appropriateness of extending an emergency. These two bills also now include the creation of a Commission on Equity and Inclusion Act. Different sections within that act define the powers and duties of that commission. Most notably, the BEP Council and the Business Enterprise Program, which is currently under the management of the Illinois Department of Central Management Services, are in fact transferred to the Commission effective 1/1/2022. This act also defines the membership of the Commission, which consists of 7 people, their terms, and their salaries, which are pretty substantial. There are many, many changes made to the Business Enterprise Act, including transferring the Business Enterprise Program from Central Management Services to this commission. But most notably for the university and for all state agencies, the Business Enterprise Act goals have in fact been increased effective 1/1/22. So now instead of having an aspirational goal of 20%, that has been increased to 30%, and the representative proportions of that goal have been increased for minorities, for women, and for persons with disabilities. The commission, in fact, is authorized to implement rules that can establish targeted efforts to encourage participation of specific diverse businesses. And it also, the BEP Act now adds that all goals are contingent upon the results of the most recent disparity study, which is in fact in process for the state of Illinois. Please pay attention that there is going to be increased attention on attempting to achieve these new goals. The goals are applied to the total value of contracts entered into by the university over a fiscal year. So while a particular goal may not be established for a single contract, we are in fact required by law to attempt to meet these goals with our total contract awards. So any questions specifically about identifying diverse vendors and or attempting to assist an otherwise diverse vendor to become BEP certified so that spend with them can be counted towards achievement of the university's goal, can be directed to the Office of Procurement Diversity. So now all solicitations, I've got to be mindful of my time, sorry. All solicitations that include BEP goals now have to have the utilization plans at the time of the bid or proposal submission. And the act now defines not only that the failure to include a utilization plan could render the proposal or bid non-responsive, but it does now allow for a cure period of 10 calendar days, but only by that vendor offering to contract with additional BEP certified subcontractors. The lack of a utilization plan or a blank utilization plan does render a bid or offer non-responsive and is not curable. And we are now charged to notify the commission of any non-responsive bids or proposals, as well as the CPO has a responsibility to do that. The BEP Council, upon written request by an agency or university, can in fact permit individual contract exemptions. And so this may be something that the university would determine is valuable to pursue. And we'll be working with the Office of Procurement Diversity to try and define certain classes or types of procurements for which we may want to seek an exemption from diversity goals and participations. Vendors have always had the right to request a waiver from BEP goals prior to contract award. Now the Act defines in greater detail when a waiver should be granted. And I think I think that this is my last slide. The commission is charged with making findings, recommendations, and proposals to the governor as necessary and appropriate to enforce the BEP Act. And if, as a result of their monitoring activities, the commission determines that any goals or policies are not being met by the university, the commission may recommend legal or administrative remedies be initiated. They may, in fact, suggest that actions be taken against a state agency or university. And if the commission concludes that a compliance plan, which we submit annually to report on what we achieved in BEP, that's done by the Office of Procurement Diversity for all the universities. Then the commission may recommend that a state agency or university revise its plan. And with that, if there are any questions, I appreciate the time, and please do not hesitate to reach out to the UIC Purchasing and Contract Management Department for any specific questions or needs or anything that we can do to improve our excellent customer service.
Thank you, Deborah. There's a couple of questions. First, someone asked if this PowerPoint was going to be available, and we will send out a copy of this PowerPoint as well as the recording to everyone on the call. So more to come on that. Someone asked a question about gaining access to the Contracts Plus module, and I'm just going to actually refer you to the chat because Aaron Rosenthal and Jill Menezes did a really great job of providing an explanation and links to get more information. So if you look there, I think you'll find some answers. But Deborah, there was a question, just switching gears for a second, if there's any updates on Amazon for Business.
Let me close this. There are no updates for Amazon for Business, other than we continue to work with the IPEC office in updating where Amazon is in attempting to achieve compliance to Illinois procurement requirements. In particular, Amazon, with which we did in 1 year's time, $5.7 million worth of business without having any underlying procurement authority. So far and away exceeding any small purchase and therefore non-competitive requirements. Amazon continues to have problems and with the state certification requirements. And so to the degree that they have failed to comply with state certifications, and to the degree that the CPO is well aware of this, we are unable to contract with Amazon for Business. I do suggest that people who have sent me emails to tell me how they can't purchase things unless they're through Amazon, I do suggest that you go through iBuy, and that you can certainly use the cart and various vendors for which we have contracts in place to secure the services and supplies that you may believe are only available via Amazon. Okay. And I want to be sensitive to people who are asking about the fact that we may be spending more than what they see on a one-time purchase for Amazon, please recognize that we are a state agency, and therefore our compliance to the law and to state certification requirements for any vendors with which we are spending more than that $100,000 per fiscal year, small purchase, competitive bid threshold, that we are required to comply with the law. And so, I want to be sensitive to that, but I also want to suggest to you that we probably do have a vendor available. If you have difficulty in identifying vendors for particular goods or services, reach out to me or someone in my department at the UIC purchasing email, or to Jill Menezes at UIS, and we can generally assist. Particularly, there may be an IPEC contract or award that we have in place that could be utilized. There may be a cooperative award that we could utilize for those same goods and services.
Thank you, Deborah. In the interest of time, I'm going to leave it at that. I think there was some other questions out there in the chat, but Erin is busy answering them there. So if you could just take a
Thank
look
you, Erin.
there.
And Erin, at least just say hello.
Hello, everyone. I've been out for a little while due to a surgery, but it's good to be back and answering questions in the chat.
Great. Thank you, Erin. Thank you, Deborah.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. I just wanted to say I have a great deal of respect and almost awe for my purchasing colleagues who continue to work very hard to meet your needs in the context of the very complicated environment that we have in the state of Illinois. They do great work.
Thank you, Gloria.
You bet. All right, on to the next thing. You're stuck with me for a little bit again. And that's because I thought it would be very important for us to spend a little bit of time talking about the annual reports that the Office of the CFO asks their units to produce every year. So the slide that you're seeing now offers you links to all of them if you want to go and take a closer look. But as an alternative, I also thought it might be good to provide a brief snapshot of some of the highlights in the reports at these meetings. So today I'm going to be egotistical and take an opportunity to talk about Business Services Annual Report. So since Business Services is changing in the very, very near future, I'm going to emphasize that our core focus continues to be the support of the business activities of the universities in the role we now describe as university outreach. University Bursar will also continue to report to Bill Patterson in his role as AVP. And as mentioned earlier, Ginger will continue to lead the Contract Records Office and coordinate the system-wide external audit engagement, in addition to her key role in leading the new University Outreach Activities Office. The Office of Organizational Effectiveness is being reimagined slightly and will continue to provide shared service activities in instructional design, communications, and change management and project coordination. You all benefit from that through the completion of their efforts in training courses and system projects and so on. Now I'd like to take just a minute to talk about some notable accomplishments that are in the report from the past year. So many system offices provided support to the SHIELD Illinois effort as they deployed the critical COVID test developed at the University of Illinois. Business Services was no exception there. Our offices partnered with SHIELD Illinois to execute over 100 COVID testing contracts with revenue of over $25 million. And our operations shared service provided procurement, travel, equipment management, and other transactional support processes, as well as University Bursar providing accounts receivable services. So we've been actively engaged with SHIELD. I wanted to highlight that System Government Costing launched the new Service Activity Advanced Certificate Program to help service center staff calculate compliant service rates. The reviews from this course have really been outstanding, and I encourage those of you with rate calculation responsibilities to take advantage of this great new program. And then some of the efficiency efforts, I want to highlight the University Bursar, who continues to be a leader in identifying and deploying efficiency efforts. So first off, a cash handling certificate program, again, part of the certification program that the offices of the CFO are engaging in, deployed this year, and it enabled 209 employees to provide more effective and compliant cash handling processes. Another big focus for the CFO office is intelligent process automation, and the University Bursar solution for daily student refunds is now saving about 520 hours a year for that office. And lastly, a new delegated agent program. This is one of the very first ones that we're deploying, and delegated agent means that we are authorizing folks who are not in central units to have a level of engagement that they may not have had in the past. And in this case, the program authorized 17 campus partners to remove late fees without going through the Bursar office. And that, certainly permits us to have faster resolution to student requests and a much more streamlined process. Hopefully, more delegated agent programs will come as we progress. And then looking forward, this year, the University Bursar is going to launch a student contact center. And this is going to provide work experience for university students, but as well really provide a peer-to-peer contact center to resolve billing questions for students, under the philosophy that a student can certainly understand student needs and concerns and be a great point of contact for someone with questions around their bills. Just as purchasing is doing a contract records, Contracts Plus rollout, the Contract Records Office is also engaged with the rollout of Contracts Plus. As Deborah said, it's in progress right now as we speak and is going to continue into January and February. Another major effort for UCRO engaged in this is the effort to convert information from ICS, and they'll be engaging in that in the next year. The new finance process performance measures dashboard really continues to evolve. And I want to thank all of you who participated in focus groups and interviews this summer, because it's given us a very clear set of requirements. And also thanks to you, I'm even more excited about this than before, because my information from folks is that the response has been great and the ideas that you've provided us have been great. And even though I'm going to be retired, I'm going to come back and peek at what happens when it deploys later this year. The first iteration of the dashboard, I don't have a date for you, but I think is going to launch before too long. In the fall, they're going to, well, we are in the fall, aren't we? Probably in the early winter, they're going to be taking a look at requirements and trying to get, excuse me, at least an initial version out to you very quickly. And then finally, the OBFS website redesign project is about to enter the design and development phase. More to come on that. That, of course, is a huge effort, and people will keep you posted as things progress with that project. So these and really many other achievements and plans help business services achieve our vision, which is to partner and provide expertise to link the university community with solutions and with resources so that you can advance your mission in your units. So in future meetings, I'm hopeful that we will have other leaders join to give you an overview of their units and let you know what improvements in their areas might be on the horizon for you. Okay, at this point, we are running just a little behind schedule, but I still think it's really important. We've learned for long virtual meetings, it's important to get up and have a stretch break. So let's take 5 minutes now and we will, let's see, 6 and 5 is 11. We will come back at 3:11. Okay, I've got 3:11 by my computer clock, so let's get back started because there's still much to share. Certainly much activity about source to pay. You've heard just a little bit of that already, and I believe that we've got Brenda Hickson, Jim Martini, Philippe Prisbij, and Carrie Canaday, who I will let introduce themselves in greater detail and give the podium over to them so that they can move forward with the important information they have for you.
Thank you so much, Gloria. And my name is Philippe Prisbij, everyone. Thank you for introducing me and our team. Unfortunately, both Brenda and Carrie had another conflict right now. So I will tackle the Contract Plus portion of source to pay updates today for you. And then Jim Martini, the director at the University Payables, will update you on our efforts with Chrome River. So that said, let's go to the first slide. And Deborah Matlock already hinted on this. Can we skip to the next slide? Thank you. We deployed Contracts Plus to ICS users just 2 days ago, deployed on Monday. So congratulations to the program team, and also all of you who are ICS users now, you are able to use Contracts Plus. So all contracts going forward for those who have deployed Contracts Plus must be initiated in Contracts Plus, not ICS. Training for you, for the entire community, concluded on October 29, but webinars will continue post-deployment, so November through March, and then of course we will think about adding more dates if those are needed. So that post-deployment training will continue. You will have resources, and we'll continue updating the job baits and FAQs on the web page. So as we learn from you what questions you may have and how the process goes for you, we will continue updating those. One thing that I wanted to mention here, and communication is pending, you will receive it shortly. There's a slight business process change, and our dear colleagues from purchasing who are on the line, please help me if anyone has any questions. Previously in ICS, the process was a little bit different. In Contracts Plus, the second party must be entered in Contracts Plus. The training and the webinar that many of you accessed addressed that already, and there is a job aid available that shows you how to do it. And again, we will send a communication to all business managers so that you are aware of that slight business process change. And as Deborah mentioned before, there is another round of deployments that will be in January and February. Those are the remaining users, those who are not on ICS, who are using CARFs. So we will continue deploying Contracts Plus to the entire community, and please stay tuned for more communications. If you have any questions about Contracts Plus, you feel free to use the service request form. If you have any project-related questions, feel free to email them to Carrie Canaday, Brenda Hickson, or myself, and I'm more than happy to assist you. So that said, I will now pass to Jim Martini, who will present on Chrome River.
Thanks, Philippe, and thank you all for attending. I appreciate the opportunity. We concluded our test pilot on October 15th, and we've gotten some test feedback from the customer advisory group and the other pilot people that indicate that the application from a user interface perspective is relatively acceptable. We did some outreaches. We've talked to them. We've actually done a survey, and we're continuing to review some of the processes, and we're continuing to revise some training as we receive feedback from those participants. A couple of things that I want to make sure that everybody understands as we move forward towards implementation, that we are using SecApp. So those USCs that provision people in TEM today will continue to provision departmental employees in the same way. There may be some name changes in the roles. For example, Chrome River calls proxies delegates. So we're going to have to accommodate a slightly different word. It is anticipated that Chrome River will require two-factor duo authentication, just like other university systems. But at this point, there is no requirement that it will be, Chrome River will reside behind the VPN. I clarify that just a little bit because we're continually seeing encroachments and attempts to hack us. So the cybersecurity landscape changes every day. But I think not having a VPN requirement will be a better experience for you users. Can somebody advance the slide for me? Thank you. And here's some of the survey results that I mentioned just a minute ago that we took from the people that participated in our pilot. We asked questions. I'm not going to read through all of this, but we asked questions about the effectiveness of our communications, the timing of our communications. Were people going out to the Chrome River provided training site? Because there are two training and resource websites available. There is one supported and constructed by the vendor, and one that is supported and constructed and is more University of Illinois specific, that is built by our own resources here. So we ask about people, are they able to get to the training materials and so on. You can see those slides, and as you get the PowerPoint later, you can review some of the questions we ask. There's another slide, I think. And yes, one of the questions, again, we ask what resources were utilized. You can examine this chart. And I think slide number 5 there on the right-hand side, the big question we asked was, were you able to complete one expense report through the Chrome River system? And 91.2% of our testers said yes. So we're going to try to work on the 8.8% people and find out why they had difficulties and try to enhance our implementation. So next slide. Again, we provided some testing scenarios just as guidelines. Conference airfare was one, mileage, a simple mileage request. And then we asked some of our testers to explore any other features or examples that were outside the 5 testing scenarios that we suggested. And you can see there that there are a few that did that. Next slide, please. We did ask the question about how long it took to complete an expense report. We think that at this point is early in the process, so we're going to keep track of that as things go forward, as people get more and more familiar. And then we ask the general question of overall satisfaction. So we're really trying to reach out to users and get some feedback. So next slide. A couple things here. A project update. We had originally planned for a November implementation, a go live, where we would take the employee reimbursement and expense functionality out of TEM and move it to Chrome River. We've had a difficulty with properly posting card transactions to Banner Ledger, so we have delayed the November deployment. That decision was made in an attempt to make sure that we have the best product out there, not only from a user experience standpoint, but one that can support the accounting requirements and compliance requirements of the university. The user interface is stable. That was not the challenge. It was the posting to RGL. So we're continuing to work through that. There is some community impact to that. We've got to reschedule some things. We've got to reschedule our training, which originally was intended to start, I think, next week, and overlap what our original vision was, that we would overlap the implementation date with approximately 3 weeks of focused training sessions available to users, where we would be attentive and eligible, and we would have Chrome River support for training issues and so on. We have that same model. We hope to wrap it around the eventual implementation date, where you would have as users a 1 week opportunity to attend a training session, followed by another 2 weeks of opportunities to attend a training session. Now, the training sessions don't last 2 weeks. I think they're an hour, maybe 90 minutes, but you would have an opportunity on every day or any day to attend at your leisure. And we would record these. So if you're more of a self-educating kind of person, you can pursue that in the evenings, for example, watching a YouTube or a video or a recording. One of the things that we planned on with an original implementation was that we would do T cards and employee reimbursements on one implementation date and follow that up perhaps a couple, maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks later with blending in the P card, procurement card activity, and going live in Chrome River with procurement card transaction reconciliations at a later date. So if you have any thoughts about that, if you would rather deploy both T cards and expense transactions and P card transactions on the same date, we are asking various stakeholders their opinions about that. Can't say what we're going to do, but if you have a thought, drop a service desk ticket or send Philippe or myself an email. And I haven't been paying attention to chat here. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay, Jim. There were 2 questions and Philippe actually already addressed them. So I think we're okay there. There is material out there for Chrome River for non-testers, and Philippe addressed that. Then the other question were if current TEM users will automatically be rolled to Chrome River. And it seems that the answer is yes. Anyone who already has a profile in TEM will automatically get access to Chrome River upon deployment. So
yes, we're not transferring transactions. So we're not going to take previously reconciled expense reports, previously reimbursed expense reports. We're not moving them into Chrome River, but we are moving the roles. So effectively, we're extracting hierarchies of some of the things that Jason mentioned about adequate controls come out of SecApp. So your USC will not have to re-provision your people. And new people will be provisioned in the same way they always have after Chrome River implementation.
okay, and Jim, just one more clarification. Someone asked if there were materials, Chrome River materials for non-testers. Is there only information out there for those that are part of the pilot and more to come for those that will be joining Chrome River, or is there information out there now for everybody?
We've got some information out there. We just haven't published the link. And if you'd send me a note, if anybody that's interested, we could probably share that link, Philippe, can't we?
I'll add a little bit more. Currently what we have on the Chrome River webpage, these are training resources and job aids that were used for pilot users on the on the premise of the current test environment in Chrome River. When we deploy to production, some of this training and job aids will have to be slightly updated for community. So we haven't shared this with community yet. We will be sharing all of these resources when we have updated deployment date and training and training availability, and resources will be available to you 2 or 3 weeks, well, more than that. Training will take place 2 weeks before deployment, and then will continue 1 week after deployment. But you will know about this ahead of time. So we are hoping at least a month that it will allow you to consume the training resources and ask any questions you may have. So right now, the resources that we have are more applicable to pilot users because things will slightly change when we move out of the training environment.
Great. And then also, how long of a time frame will be allowed for transactions such as program advances to close within TEM after Chrome River deploys?
We're working on that schedule. We just had a conversation about that today. We will eventually have to move advanced transactions, which have a longer life cycle than the conventional expense report. We are going to have to move them to Chrome River, but we understand that units that are doing research are going to have outstanding advanced activity. So we're working on that schedule now. We will have TEM around for a while, but not able, not visible, not capable of putting in new transactions. So you will have it available for historical transactions. I'm seeing a chat in there about that. TEM, the user interface, at some point may go away somewhere in the distant future as we find a better way for you to do research. But we will have TEM live for invoice payments, for example, non-purchase order based payments for some time, and for research. And proxies will transfer, but they will be renamed as delegates. Again, we haven't, to Natalie's question, we haven't yet defined the time frame program advances. We are going to need your help to get standard expense reports and T-card charges reconciled as quickly as possible. We can't have unreconciled T-card transactions out there for months. So please pay attention to our requests to deal with those. Joy, your question is about 2 weeks to train. Well, it's really a 90-minute, I believe, is the interval we expect. And we will have those in a concentrated availability for 1 week before implementation and 2 weeks after, and as needed. So we expect people not to have expense report needs immediately the day after go live. We accumulate those as people travel and they come back, and we suspect that most of our users may not even elect to train until they have an expense report to do. So training materials will be available constantly.
Right, and I just want to follow up on that, and little clarification, that training will be 2 weeks before deployment, and that will be a daily training event. So you'll be able to, however your schedule allows you, there'll be training every day. And then for a week after deployment, there'll be training every day. The training will not stop after that. The frequency will simply stretch a little bit. So we may have initially training once a week and then once a month, just like you're used to iTravel. That training will continue for the foreseeable future. So just like Jim said, if you have a trip planned sometime in June and we deploy in, let's say, January, February, it's not like you will have that window of training and it will simply disappear. You will be able to continuously train, review resources, and everything that we have on the webpage. So that's not going to go away.
We've got to offer that for new employees. We recognize that. And in fact, Chrome River has what they refer to as a walkthrough option, which will be exposed and which will be displayed, where you can actually click on an icon that starts a wizard. It's an interactive question answering thing. What is it you want to do? Do you want to do a pre-trip approval request, or do you want to do an expense report? And then it tells you what to do. So there's lots of things that we think will make the initial user experience a lot better than we were able to deliver with the TEM product.
And to also follow up on some of the questions about the lingering expense reports and transactions that are still in TEM, we know of some of the folks that still have unfinished ERs. Please stay tuned and look for communications. We will definitely communicate to you, and we will let you know what the time frame is, where those have to be either submitted and completed and reconciled. So again, please stay tuned for more communications. We will definitely reach out to you.
Okay, I'm sure there's much more to come, but thank you for the update. Everyone is very curious to understand as much as they can about this deployment. People are excited to see the new application, which is great. All right, now we're going to shift our focus a little bit to accounting activity, and Ann Laramore, an assistant director from UAFR, will join us to talk about NACUBA combinations and invalid fund types.
Thank you, Gloria. And I'm going to share my screen. So hopefully you all can see this. Let me know if you cannot. Welcome, everyone. Good afternoon. I am here to talk about the invalid fund type NACUBO combination report. I'm Ann Larimore, as Gloria was saying, from University Accounting and Financial Reporting. Thank you for joining us today to listen to this. Today, our agenda, we're going to go over an overview of fund type program codes in NACUBO. We'll go through the allowable fund type and NACUBO function combination grid. We'll go over the report itself, common errors that we see, and some tips for correcting those errors. Our whole goal and why we're up here presenting today is that we want to get the word out on this monthly report in hopes to prevent future NACUBO function combination errors, as well as have those errors corrected in a timely manner. So you all probably know this information, but I did want to give a quick refresher on the fund types, program codes, and NACUBO. The university receives funding for a variety of sources, which are recorded to the different fund types. And in each fund type has a different purpose depending on the source of the revenue. So each fund type uses either a generic program code that begins with 19 or a unique program code that begins with the first 3 digits of your unit's organization code, depending on the fund type. Program codes are designed to serve 2 primary objectives. So to distinguish between operational activities within the fund types that might be shared by multiple departments or activities, such as on your state or ICR fund, and to identify the function of the activity, such as instruction or research, according to standard definitions developed by NACUBO, which stands for the National Association of College and University Business Officers. The NACUBO function denotes why an expense is being incurred, as opposed to denoting what is being purchased, which is what an account code does. The NACUBO functions are used in our standard reporting structure to classify expenses according to the purpose for which they are incurred and used on a variety of reports. So what I really wanted to get into today was, well, I wanted to market, again, our program code page, but I wanted to talk about this report that we do each month. So on our banner program code and NACUBO functions website, which I have the link right here, and here's a screenshot of it. In addition to it being a wonderful resource to help with your program codes, knowing what they are, defining all the different NACUBO functions, you will find here the 3rd bullet point, the NACUBO function and allowable fund type combination grid. And so this is what this grid looks like whenever you open it up. The grid notes what NACUBO functions are allowed and not allowed for each of the fund types. So for example, you can see here for ICR, a 2C, the 1000 instruction NACUBO function is not allowed, there's an N, whereas the 1100 research NACUBO function is allowed, there's a Y. The NACUBO function allowability is determined based on what the funding source can be used for. So each month, around the 15th of the month, UAFR runs a report of all the expense transactions, both non-payroll and payroll, that are posting to a NACUBO function that is unallowable based on the fund type. So for example, on that last slide, if you have an expense posting to a 1000 instruction NACUBO function on your ICR fund, your 200-250, it'll come up as an invalid combination. Based on this report, we will send out emails to the financial managers of the org code asking that they correct these invalid fund type NACUBO transactions, excuse me. And we ask that these corrections be made prior to the close of business within the period you are notified. And then beginning in June, the report is ran more frequently in order to verify that the transactions are corrected before fiscal year end. The following on this slide, we have some common examples of invalid combinations we see each month. So as mentioned before, the 1000 instruction NACUBO on an ICR2C fund type, we see a lot of, you cannot post expenses using a 1000 instruction on an ICR fund. We also see 3J and 3M funds are only allowed to be used with the 2000 auxiliary enterprise NACUBO function. So therefore, if these fund types are used with a program code that's coded with anything else other than the 2000 NACUBO function, it will create an invalid combination. Or the opposite is true, where the program codes that are coded with the 2000 auxiliary enterprise NACUBO function typically are only used with 3J and 3M fund types. therefore, it creates one of those invalid combinations if it's used on another fund type. And then similarly, the last one here, the 5,000 stores and services NACUBA function should typically only be used on a 3E fund type. Therefore, if it's used on a non-E3 fund type, it will create an invalid combination, which will notify you on. So correcting these errors. So to ensure proper financial reporting, we ask that any invalid fund type NACUBA function combination transactions be corrected in a timely manner. We ask that they be corrected in the month that you're notified of the error. So if you get notified this month around the 15th of the month, we ask that you try to get it corrected with a November date. These can be corrected through an expense reclassification JV to move the expenses from the invalid combination to a valid fund type program code combination. And then for payroll expense errors, you will need to perform labor redistributions to move those expenses that have already posted to an invalid fund type program code to a valid fund type program code. But you'll also need to make sure to update the job distribution so that future payroll expenses do not occur on that invalid combination. And for that, we suggest you reach out to your HR contact to update the job labor distribution records. But if you do need additional assistance or have any questions, there is an email on at the end of this presentation that lists that you can email for the UAFR payroll experts. Just a few tips for correcting these invalid fund type NACUBA combination errors. As you already know, we ask that you correct these in a timely manner. If you see an error is going to continuously reappear on the report, look into what's causing that error. So that job distribution that we just talked about, it could be that where you haven't gotten the job distribution corrected. So payroll expenses continue to post to that invalid fund type program code combination. We've also seen where monthly feeder is made, where the CFOP is already filled in on the feeder and the CFOP needs updated to the correct program code or fund code that is allowable. Once you do correct those errors, please go back into Banner and make sure your JV posted correctly and the error has been cleared. And then although July is very busy for everyone, please try to correct these as soon as you're notified. At year end, we do send out notifications more often, usually multiple times a week. As we have to have the errors corrected before fiscal year close. So with that, make sure you're correcting your errors in a timely manner at year end and make sure that they're posting to the correct fiscal year. So for example, for next year end, which seems like a long time away, but it's already November, make sure you update the July date to be the June date in order to have the correcting entry made to the correct FY22 closing fiscal year end. And then here are just some resources. So this is that Banner program code and NACUBA function website that I referred to earlier, as well as that grid that's on that website. And then here's some contact information for us. So for questions on the report or any non-payroll errors, you can reach out to Connie Langley or myself. Connie is the one who runs the report each month and will be sending the emails. And then for questions, if I can speak, sorry, on how to correct payroll errors, we suggest you reach out to our payroll experts at UAFR by emailing this email right here. I have not been watching the chat. Are there any questions? Oh.
There was one question, but I think it was answered. I just want to repeat it for those that weren't looking. The question was, how do we know the NACUBA code on a specific program code?
Okay.
And there's a report that's available. Paola and John posted the report name. And I think there's another report that David Anderson posted just now that shows the hierarchy, which includes the NACUBA code. So lots of places to get that information.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, and those are actually just pages in Banner, not necessarily a report. It's just a simple Banner page you go to and do a query and enter in your chart and program code combination, and it'll show up.
Thanks, John. Thanks for the clarification.
Thank you all. And then I will share my screen for the UBIT presentation as well.
Yep, and in this presentation, Anne is going to be joined by Assistant Director Brenda Sutherland and Tax Analyst Kimberly Maxwell, both of the University Tax Office.
Thank you, Gloria. And can you all still see my PowerPoint, hopefully?
Looks good.
Okay, thank you. So hi, everyone. Again, I'm Ann Larimore from University Accounting and Financial Reporting. And we're here to talk today about unrelated business income tax, or UBIT. And I will let Brenda and Kim introduce themselves.
Yes, hello, I'm Brenda Sutherland, and I am from Treasury Operations, Tax Compliance and Analysis.
And I'm Kim Maxwell, also from Treasury Compliance and Analysis.
So today we plan to discuss the following agenda items with you. So I'm going to go over the UBIT definition and the UBIT process. Kim is going to go through the common types of UBIT activities at the university, and then Brenda will go over UBIT exceptions and rates. Our goal for this presentation is that you gain a better understanding on what UBIT is, in hopes that you can kind of reflect on the activity occurring within your department and determine if there's any UBIT activity that we're missing or not currently reporting on. Currently, we review about 57 activities across all 3 universities. However, we think that there might be more activities occurring within the university that we're not aware of and may not properly be reporting as UBIT. So the UBIT definition. So UBIT, unrelated business income tax. The university overall is a not-for-profit or exempt organization. However, we do have to pay taxes on any profit created from an unrelated trade or business that is regularly carried on. So the activity must be a trade or business and regularly carried on and not substantially related to our exempt purpose. So it is considered a trade or business if it produces income from the sale of goods or services. And we interpret this to mean the activity has a profit motive. We typically see UBIT activity occurring on a self-supporting fund. The activity has to be regularly carried on. If the activity is intermittent or infrequent, it is not regularly carried on. And the activity is not substantially related to the university's exempt purpose of teaching, research, public service, healthcare, or economic development. So the life cycle of the UBIT process. The university must report UBIT annually through a 990T tax form. We start the UBIT process in August to review the activity from the prior fiscal year. So right now, in the fall, we are currently working with units to review the FY21 activity. We reach out to those units that we know have UBIT in August by sending them what we call is a UBIT schedule. And we work with those units throughout the fall to complete this complex UBIT schedule, summarizing the financial activity of the unrelated activity. The UBIT schedule essentially determines if the activity has a profit or loss. We take the operating ledger information from Banner and work with the departments to determine what revenues and expense relate to the UBIT activity. So for example, if the UBIT activity is hosting weddings at a university location, we would look at all the wedding rental revenue and then subtract out any related direct expenses such as catering expenses, as well as a portion of indirect expenses such as salary, fringe benefits, depreciation, debt service interest expense. And UAFR will perform 2 reviews on the UBIT schedule and that information. And then we pass on the completed schedule to tax or TCA for their final review. And within TCA, Kim, Brenda, and Terry Thompson all review the UBIT schedules. Once TCA has finalized their review, they will send the information along to the public accounting firm for completion of the 990T, we're currently working with KPMG. Then throughout the year, we are constantly monitoring financial activity to see if there's any additional UBI that we might be missing and research potential UBIT that may not have been reported. So for example, for each new self-supporting fund request, we look at the activity to see if it would generate UBIT. Also, we reach out through presentations like this one to see if there's any existing activities that we may not be aware of. Some common types of UBIT. So Kim is going to go into these in much more detail, but I will touch on them briefly. There's advertising income from advertisements such as print or digital advertising, sponsorships where the sponsor is receiving substantial unrelated benefits, rental income where additional services are provided, such as event setup, personal property rentals, theater and entertainment activities that are conducted in a commercial manner, campus recreational activities, ordinary or routine testing. And I'm going to let Kim now, I'll pass it on to Kim to talk about each of these in more detail.
Thank you, Ann. So now we're going to discuss the different types of UBI that Ann just mentioned. We will start with advertising income. Advertising can occur in many forms. You can see radio, poster, digital signage, or print advertising, as we have with UIC Athletic Basketball Yearbook. All advertising revenue must be recognized as UBI. In the UBIT world, there is a difference between advertising and acknowledgement. Advertising causes UBI, acknowledgement or mere acknowledgement does not. The main distinction is that the term advertising includes qualitative language. This could be price information, a promise that the purchase will save you money, endorsements, or comparative language. Advertising might also include an inducement to purchase goods or services, a call to action. An example would be, call now for the best value on State Farm auto insurance. We can contrast that with acknowledgement. Acknowledgement includes display of an organization's logo or a slogan that doesn't contain qualitative or comparative language. Acknowledgement could contain value-neutral descriptions of products or services, a list of locations and contact information, and a payer's brand or trade names. State Farm is a proud sponsor of the University of Illinois. That's an example of an acknowledgement. It is not advertising, so not reportable for UBI. Non-qualified sponsorships. So you see the term non-qualified sponsorships, that implies that there are qualified sponsorships, and there are. The way I think of it is qualified sponsorships are qualified to be exempt from UBI. Non-qualified sponsorships are not qualified to be exempt, so that means we have to report them. In a qualified sponsorship, qualified to be exempt, the simplified version is the sponsor gets nothing back, at least nothing of value. The IRS calls it a substantial return benefit. In a qualified sponsorship, there is no arrangement or expectation that the sponsor will receive any substantial return benefit for their sponsorship payment. We'll contrast that with the non-qualified sponsorship. So there, the sponsor receives a substantial return benefit for their payment. They're getting something back. The IRS says that if the fair market value of what the sponsor receives in return is greater than 2% of what they paid for their sponsorship, then we have to recognize that and report UBI. This means that when we complete UBIT schedules, we have to figure out the fair market value of anything a sponsor receives in return from their payment. That could be any of the possible benefits you can see listed on this slide. An example here is Sangamon Auditorium sponsorships. So there are certain sponsorship levels receive a certain number of free tickets for an event. Those tickets have to be valued and included in the UBIT schedule as a substantial return benefit. Rental income with additional services. Brenda will mention later when she talks about exclusions that rental of real property or just renting space is exempt from UBIT. But when real property rental comes with services, specifically what the IRS calls substantial services furnished for the convenience of Class C that go beyond those usually provided with the rental of space for occupancy only, that will cause UBI. When rental of space comes with audiovisual services or an event coordinator or maid services or any of the things you see listed here, then we have UBI for the rental and we must recognize that for tax purposes. An example on Chicago's campus is campus filming. When NBC films Chicago Fire at UIC, they're not just renting the space on campus. They also require that certain streets be blocked off and that security is provided. And those are examples of additional services that do trigger UBI. Personal property rentals. While the rental of space or real property is exempt from UBI, rental of personal property must be recognized for UBI purposes. You can see some common examples on this slide, but personal property rental can also be rental of things you don't normally think of, like node space on a supercomputer, which we recognize as UBI for NCSA as part of the university's tax return. Theater and entertainment events. Of course, the university hosts educational events and student performances. Those aren't UBI. We don't have to pay tax on the income from those. But the IRS has said that when the university hosts events that are conducted in a commercial manner or that are commercial in nature, those are the key words, then ticket sales from those events will trigger UBI. A lecture series or a student production at the forum will not trigger UBI, but a Snoop Dogg performance at Credit Union 1 will trigger UBI. Campus recreation activities. When campus facilities are used by the public for a fee, we have revenue that must be reported as UBI. Campus recreation facilities in both Urbana and Springfield at the UIS track do offer public memberships, and we report UBI for both those facilities. Recreation facilities at UIC no longer allow public memberships. So for that facility, we no longer have UBI reporting in this category. Routine ordinary testing. The IRS makes a distinction between research, which we do a lot of at our university, and ordinary testing. Research is related to our mission, it is exempt, but routine ordinary testing must be reported. The IRS considers an activity to be ordinary or routine testing if there's a standard procedure used to perform the testing, if no intellectual questions are posed, if the work is routine or repetitive in nature, and if there are no research activities or analyses performed by the system as part of the testing activities. An example of testing reported as UBI is testing performed by UIC Lab Outreach, which does pathology testing services for other hospitals, clinics, and physician offices. And now Brenda Sutherland will talk about the types of activities that may be excluded from UBI.
Thank you, Kim. First of all, the first exclusion from UBI is passive income. And passive income is investment income like interest and dividends, annuities, things of that nature. However, through various U of I investments, such as some S corporations or partnerships, these may actually generate some UBI through some of the activities through them, and they are shown on the K1s, in which the university receives annually from our partnerships. The next exclusion is royalties, and this is a use of valuable rights such as trademarks, copyrights, and patents. Also, as Kim just pointed out just a few minutes ago, rental income from real property where there are no additional services provided are not included in UBI. These types of services would be like your standard type of amenities such as janitorial services, utilities, and trash collection. If those are the only services that are included, then the activity will be excluded from UBI. The other thing about rental income is the rent should not be based on a percentage of the net income or profit. It must be based on the percentage of gross income, or as we usually see, a flat amount each month, like for rent. The next exclusion is called the convenience exception. And this is where an activity that is carried on primarily for the convenience of its members, like the students, patients, officers, staff, employees. The convenience exception does not apply to sales for any activities to the general public, alumni or spouses, children, or guests of employees. For example, let's take a quick look at retail operations, such as a bookstore, right? You know, we all have bookstores. What is excluded from UBI are the sales to students, faculty, and staff for items that are directly related to the university's educational purposes, like books, laptops, school supplies, things of that nature. Also, that's included in the convenience exception are non-educational items that are very low in cost or that have a useful life of less than 1 year, such as toiletries, health and beauty products, clothing, novelty items with the university's logo and insignia or emblem, candy, greetings cards, things of that nature. So those kind of items could fall under the convenience exception. The next exception is the research. Generally, income from research or grants may be excluded from UBI if the following criteria are present. First of all, income for research for any United States, any of its agencies or instrumentalities, or a state or a political subdivision. For colleges and universities, income from research that is either fundamental or applied. The results are freely available to the general public, even if the patent or the exclusive right stays with the individual. and as long as the activity is not conducted as incident to a commercial or industrial operation. As in the case of many activities, each research activity is fact and circumstance specific and needs to be evaluated on an individual basis to determine if it is subject to UBI. Also, other examples of some UBI exclusions are revenue generating activities with student involvement. And this could be with the theater aspect or even with research. And also if the work is being done by volunteers, where the work, of course, there's no compensation involved. Also, sales to other Illinois governmental agencies, as this lessens the burden of government, which is one of our missions. And then lastly, sales of donated merchandise that's received by an organization or as a gift, especially in the case of silent auctions, other fundraising activities. For federal purposes, the current rate is 21%. However, with our president and Congress, we don't know what's going to happen in the future. So stay tuned to see what happens to the corporate rates. Also, there is an Illinois rate, and the total is 9.5%, and there's actually two components. There's a corporate income tax rate of 7% and a personal property replacement tax of 2.5%. And also there has been some discussion that these rates may be increasing in the future. So once again, stay tuned to see what our governor is going to be doing. This means that for activities that create a profit, departments need to budget for 30.5% on a going forward basis. Currently, the system is in a position where we need to evaluate quarterly estimated payments, and they may be required at some point in the future. So tax compliance and analysis works closely with accounting, and we will determine when it is time to notify the profitable departments for any tax liability that they may be owed from their activities. On this slide, we have some resources for future reference. Section 1813 has a lot of good discussion about other UBI, which goes into a little bit more detail than what we were able to provide here. Section 22 is the self-supporting and revenue generating activities. We have IRS publication 598, and the tax return that we file on an annual basis is the 990T, which is exempt organizations business income tax return. This next slide has our contact information for future reference. So if you have any questions, please feel free to contact any one of us, and we will try to answer your question for you. And right now, I think we're right on schedule here with questions, but I didn't see any questions in the chat. But if there are any questions at this point, please let us know.
There are no other questions.
Okay. Yes, this has been a very quick overview of UBIT. So,
you know, it's an area that is complex, and I'm so glad that we have experts to help us through this. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
You bet. As we close today, I really want to thank all the presenters for offering so much valuable information. I don't know about you, but it was a lot to take in. So I'm glad we've got recordings. Remember, you can always refer to those. I also want to thank the 200 plus attendees for their time and attention today. It makes us feel good when so many people feel that this is a good use of their time. I also want to remind you that Bill, Ginger, Dana, and Bernadette will continue to be available to you to serve your business needs whenever you need to reach out to them. And I want to especially acknowledge today Bernadette Rossmore, who is the person most responsible for the success of these meetings. She coordinates agendas, speakers, she facilitates, she encourages, she works to create successful agendas and will continue to do so in the future. And then a shout out to Dana Libro, who is partnering with Bernadette on a day-to-day basis, but also on the day of the event to make certain that everything runs smoothly. And I'm very grateful to the two of them for the success that we've had over the years with this program. Also, please be sure your calendar is marked for the next AFO BMG meeting. It happens on January 19th from 1 to 3, and the meetings will continue to be virtual. Finally, I wish you a great holiday season, and I hope you get to be with your family and friends this year. I'm very much looking forward to that. Thanks for joining, and I'll formally close the meeting now. Have a great rest of your day.
Best wishes, Gloria.
Thanks much.